Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video I'll be discussing classes that you should be sure and take before you take the DAT. My name's Connor and I'm a second year dental student studying at Roseman University's College of Dental Medicine. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel before you forget, and go follow me over on Instagram so you can catch my clinic recap stories and see what I'm doing in the clinic on a daily basis as a second year dental student. Taking the DAT is a huge part of applying to dental school. It's an expensive and intimidating test that covers a ton of material. So in order to help you be as successful as possible when you are studying and getting ready to take the DAT, here are some classes that I would suggest you take before taking the DAT so that you can get a score that you're happy with. Getting straight to the point, here's that list. So take your intro to biology class so that we can all remember the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Seriously, that's like the only thing I remember. And I would also recommend taking a molecular biology class. Some optional biology classes would be anatomy and physiology. You could also take something like cellular bio or genetics. As far as chemistry classes go, take both of your general chemistry classes as well as your organic chemistry classes. There may be a class that would be beneficial for the quantitative reasoning or the math section of the DAT, maybe something like algebra, but for the most part, the skills that you need for the QR section or the reading comprehension section are all things that can be learned while you're just studying to take the DAT. So I wouldn't be too worried about taking classes to help you prepare for any of those sections. As far as the PAT goes, there aren't going to be any classes for that. Those are just skills that can be learned through practice and repetition. So the more that you do, the better that you'll get. And I know that it can be frustrating because these are weird and new skills, but just keep at it, keep studying, keep practicing, and you can get it down. In order to explain why these are the classes I'm recommending over other classes, I'm going to link down in the description box below to the American Dental Association's DAT guide. In it, it explains what's on the DAT, how the DAT is scored, things like that. So you can check that out if you want to. If you look at the breakdown of the sections for the DAT, specifically looking at biology, this is why I recommend taking a general or introductory course to biology as well as molecular biology. These two classes will cover a good amount of the biology information that you will come across in studying for and taking the DAT. A lot of people will also recommend taking the optional classes that I suggested, so anatomy, physiology, cell bio, or genetics, because looking at the ADA's guide, you can see that all of that information can potentially be tested on the DAT. It's not as heavily tested as the other classes that I've seen, unless you just have bad luck and that's everything that you're tested on. With this in mind, you could approach the DAT thinking, I'll take this at the end of my sophomore year, right after I've taken my introductory biology course, molecular biology, and then 2 of the optional courses that you choose. Or like most people who take the DAT sometime during or the summer after their junior year, you could actually take all of the optional courses, or using the ADA's DAT guide, you could look at the different material that's covered in the biology section and select courses that you feel would be most enjoyable or most beneficial for your preparation in applying and taking the DAT. Before I took the DAT, I had taken the introductory biology course, molecular biology, anatomy, and physiology. That being said, how well you do on the biology section will more likely come down to how effectively you study the biology material as you're preparing to actually take the DAT. Your courses can give you a good foundation, but effective study will have a greater impact. And had I been more effective in my studying and reviewing of the biology materials, I could have done better on the biology section. But because I didn't really study this material effectively, this ended up being my lowest section on the DAT. Getting onto the chemistry classes, I would recommend taking your 2 general chemistry classes and then your 2 organic chemistry classes all back to back, and then taking the DAT after you finish the second part of organic chemistry. So all of that material is fairly fresh. And for some people, that could put taking the DAT at the end of your sophomore year, or depending on when you decide to take those classes, could also put it in the typical junior year or summer after when you're applying. And the reason I recommend this is, for me, it had been about 3 years since I had taken my general chemistry classes, so I felt like I had to relearn everything about Gen Chem. Whereas I had just finished taking the second part of OChem, and so all of that was fresh, which thankfully enabled me to spend a little bit more time studying and reviewing the other sections and relearning Gen Chem. So I took the DAT the summer that I was applying. I took it in July of 2018, and I had all of my application filled out except for my DAT scores. And this was because I wanted to ensure that I would have enough time to study and prepare so that I could only have to take the DAT once. And thankfully, my hard work paid off, and I was able to get a score that I was super happy with. There you have it, the classes that I think you should be sure and take before you take the DAT. Hopefully you find this helpful in planning out your schedule and figuring out when the best time for you is to take the DAT. Be sure and subscribe to the channel so you can see my next video where I talk about how this average Joe scored a 22 on the DAT. And I will give you how I studied and how I would study differently so that hopefully you can score just as well, if not better, than I did. Be sure and follow me over on Instagram so you can see what I'm up to there. And go ahead and share this video with your pre-dental club or your sibling who's a pre-dental student or somebody who you know that is kind of just even thinking about pursuing a career in dentistry.